Can start.
Yeah. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karva Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. वासुदेवेन्द्र योगीन्द्रं नत्वा ज्ञानप्रदं गुरुं मुमुक्षूणां हितार्थाय तत्त्वबोधो विधीयते.
Very good.
नित्यं शुद्धं निराभासं निराकारं निरञ्जनं नित्यबोधं चिदानन्दं गुरुं ब्रह्मा नमाम्यहम्.
Very good. Excellent. So we are on the topic of Panch Kosha, Atitaha, Atma, iti uchyate. Atma is being said as transcending the 5 koshas, the 5 sheets, the 5 layers, the 5 coverings is the translation. But we have understood now that the sheath usage is not the literal meaning. Nothing can cover Atma. But still, if nothing is covering Atma, then why is it not recognizable the minute it's pointed? Okay, I may miss it, but the minute I'm told, I should be able to see it. I still don't see it even if I'm told that your nature is Atma. I'm told my nature is Atma, but having told, I don't see it. Now, supposing I'm told there is a mole on my cheek, which I don't see myself, or behind my ear somewhere, and someone just tells me there is a mole on your cheek somehow or wherever, and I wasn't aware of it, and or some things hurt me. There's a small ulcer or something, and someone points out, I immediately see it, because now, even if I've missed it, the minute it is brought to my attention, I'm able to see it. Why is it not like that with Atma? That even if it is missed by me, whatever be the reason, I consider myself not Atma. I consider myself name and form, a limited individual. I consider myself born, and I am going through changes of vikaras of birth and growth, and now disease, and then decay, and then finally, no, I'm going through all of that. How come minute I'm told that you are Atma and not all this, I don't see it. That I don't see it straight away as being told is that unfoldment through the methodology of koshas. All the methodologies, but here in specific koshas. Why I miss it is because I seem to be identified with certain upadhis, with certain equipments, which I own as myself and me. Example we took last class. In presence of a crystal, when a pink flower is placed, a pink lotus is placed, the crystal looks pink. This is a very reflective example till the very last chapter of your Adhyanam, which would be supposing Brahma Sutras 10 years down the line, supposing if anybody survives that long with interest and etc., with grace. If it was the last thing that you were to do, till then this example would be repeated. That's the importance of this example. Because if the pink crystal is told that pinkness is not your inherent nature, then what must the pink crystal do to understand that it is not its nature? Pinkness is not its nature. What will it have to do? It will have to discern where is the pinkness coming from. If it is not my inherent nature, if the crystal must discover that pinkness is not its nature, whereas it is looking pink, non-separate from the crystal at that point, then crystal will have to discern where is the pinkness coming from. And when it starts the process of inquiry, because it has now been told pinkness is not your nature, and your nature is free of this pink characteristic that it is now exhibiting. While it is exhibiting and pink crystal is believing itself to be pink crystal because pink is not separate from crystal in that experience of the crystal, yet the pink crystal is told pink doesn't belong to you. Pink is an incidental quality you are taking on. Pink is an incidental attribute you are identifying with as yourself. Pink is not your nature. Pink is not your attribute. Pink is not your quality. Pink doesn't belong to you. Nothing can be put more clearly. Pink does not belong to you. Yet, experience-wise, the crystal says, I'm pink crystal. And it has to now understand that the pinkness that it is experiencing, because it cannot experience it itself as anything other than pink crystal, the pinkness is not me. How does it do that? For which slowly it has to be led away to identify pink belongs to whom? Who has the characteristic of pinkness? When it starts to think along that line, it has been told that whatever you've identified with has the characteristic of pinkness, has the characteristic of certain smell, has the characteristic of born and decay and death. When it sees where is this characteristic coming from, carefully observant, and it is likely to identify, because it doesn't belong to him, it'll have to see from which source is the pinkness coming and in whose association has it developed the pink quality. And when it goes through that analysis and vichar, vivek buddhi, and it realizes that the pinkness is actually because it is so close to the flower, associated with the flower, so it is taking on the qualities of the pink flower. And thus it is actually colorless. And it, while being associated with the pink flower, the correction has happened to the crystal that I'm not pink, I'm colorless by nature, while it is still associated with the pink flower. If this analogy is understood and the examples understood together, then koshas means now what? That pink flower, in association with which the crystal was assuming that I am pink crystal. In association to the pink flower, crystal is assuming that I am pink crystal. Now, pink crystal conclusion about its own self is an error made about its own nature. That error's locus is where? Because of the pink flower. But that mistake has happened in self-conclusion. That error in association with something, locus, becomes a kosha. I am pink crystal. This knowledge is incorrect about the crystal, that the crystal holds about his own nature. Until it begins to discern away the pinkness of the flower, away from its own self, that associated knowledge which is wrong about oneself is believed to be oneself, and so it works like a covering, as if a covering. hiding away the real nature of crystal. But is the real nature of crystal hidden at any point? No. The real nature crystal remains colorless. But the idea it had collected, my words are very carefully chosen today because the idea is beautiful and subtle. It has collected what did I just say before I said a
Idea.
beautiful
It has collected an idea.
about its own self. It has collected an idea. The word is collected. Because of the pink flower, it has collected the idea, I'm pink crystal. Because of the shape of the flower, it is connecting itself with those, the way the light is falling on the flower, the crystal also seems some part of it bright, some part of it dark, and says, I am bright this side, I'm dark that side. Because of that association, and if something happens, starts withering, the flower starts withering, the crystal thinks that I am withering. This knowledge about the crystal, wrongly held by the crystal, is preventing the right knowledge to surface. And therefore it's called a sheath, a kosha. So in placement, where you have placed that wrong identification, in identification with what you have placed, where you have placed, that point becomes a kosha of wrong understanding. So when it is placed, I'll give another example, again very famous example. Like I said, till the last of your lesson, you will hear these few examples in Vedanta. Take the example of you seeing a snake. The minute you see a snake in a semi-dark area, partly lit, in the basement, where there is a lot of furniture and everything, and very little light coming, and you see a snake in the basement, you shriek. Now, the minute you see a snake, what is the locus of that perception? Mind. Okay. That's where the mistake has happened. But in association with what did that happen? Vision. What did you see?
The rope.
The rope. Actually, you missed the rope. There was a rope there. You missed the rope as the rope, and instantly you perceived a snake on it. So the locus of snake is the rope. Locus being placement. Where is it perceived? Of course, in the mind, it can't be perceived, but you are seeing it on the rope. Because rope and snake example is outside, it is easy and misses one point. Now the same thing's happening here. Body you are seeing. This body that I see as born. When I come out in the world, the doctors and nurses are careful, especially I don't know about the Western tradition, in Indian tradition, I don't know about present times also, but in our times, our parents were very careful. Right time has to be noticed. The right time. I have always wondered कि right time कैसे है, कुछ error कर दिया तो सारी उसकी जन्म पत्री error हो गई, believing that यही time था. But anyway, let's just trust it. That time has to be noticed. When the body emerged in the world, has surfaced in the world, has manifested in the world. Now, body is seen. The person is there inside, toddler, tiny, infant, not yet self-conscious of the body, is not yet aware of the body, but is a living being, is alive, cries when it's hungry, and wet, and smiles when it has a beautiful image or perception, or expresses joy, expresses sorrow. Two fundamental things that every living being expresses: joy and sorrow. But the identification with the body is not conscious. It still doesn't say I am the body. But as it starts growing up, at that real tiny stage, the child is not aware of its own body. As it starts to grow, identification, every day waking up in the same body, you start saying my body. Now, the minute I say I am this body, this is me, I am the body, this error in judgment that I am the body is coming because of that awareing conscious principle, which before the identification with the body was also there. And yet, because of a repetition every day, waking up, identifying, hearing your name, hearing these are your parents, hearing these are your siblings, it's firmer and firmer. It gets grounded. It gets solidified. This body becomes the placement of error that I am the body. Yes. Aham dehaha. Deho ham is called. I am the body. Deha aham. If one is very careful, most of the people, when you listen to this statement, actually do not understand this statement. I find very few people, because it takes time to accept that I am believing I am the body. It is so natural to us that we don't even recognize that this is an accepted statement. I am the body is somehow so natural to me that I am not conscious of the identification process. So the minute I have identified with the sharira, gross, sthula sharira, the error has come. Pink flower here is the gross body, sthula sharira. The minute the sthula sharira said, when I've woken up in the morning, I did not just, as I've said before in the class, nobody told me that you're awake. When I wake up in the morning, I say I am awake. Till my mother wakes me up, what do I say? Till my mama wakes me up, I'm pretending to be asleep even if I'm awake. But the minute mama says, उठो, तो हम क्या करते हैं? मम्मा के कहने के बाद थोड़ी उठते हैं, हम उठ चुके होते हैं, उसके पहले हम एक्टिंग कर रहे होते हैं कि हम सो रहे हैं, हमें और नहीं उठना, अभी नहीं उठना, थोड़ी देर और सोने दो. But the minute you have actually woken up, nobody told you, hey, you're awake. That means what? Take the avasthatraya before. Me, the sleeper who had a dream, and then I had a sound sleep. I, on waking up, said I had a sleep, and now instantly identified with the body. And the minute I'm identified with this body, I call myself, I am this form. है ना? आपकी हाइट कितनी है? इतनी? I'm sorry, इतनी? नहीं. Bottle के जितनी? A little more, okay. Lamp shade जितनी? This is my height. My height. Is this my height? What is a kosha now? If you can identify this clearly. What is the kosha?
Annamaya kosha.
Correct?
Sthula sharir.
Sthula sharir. The characteristic of the body, I have made an error in judgment and I'm calling I am that. As a result of which, what happens? Every aspect of my body is me. So when the flower was withering, the crystal said, I am withering. So when the body is now withering, I am saying, I am withering. Yes, identification is not wrong. But this body, Shastra tells us now further. Examine what is the body really. Are you the body? Crystal को कहा है, तुम सोचो, does pinkness belong to you? In the same way, इस जीव को कहा है, तुम सोचो, are you the body? Are the characteristics of the body definable by you? Yes. I know the characteristics. I'm this height, this weight, this color, etc. This gender. These are all the characteristics of the body. Now, where has the conclusion come that I am 5 feet tall, 6 feet tall? Where has the conclusion come from that I am overweight or underweight or perfect weight? The characteristic of the body belongs to the body. And it will have its own stages to go through. But the kosha becomes when I am misplacing it to my swarupa, to my existing natural state, which is there without the body also. But in my cognition today, I am a pink crystal. So what is the body made up of? Shastra analyzes it. Anna rasena eva bhutva. It has been born from anna rasa. Why anna rasa? Rasa word you can also in modern times, today's times, you can translate it as nutrients. The nutrition from the food. The nutrients of the food. So whatever food one is consuming, this food is the reason for the birth of the body. The types of food is given in the Gita, yes, 17th chapter, 8th, 9th and 10th verse, I think. Sattvic, Rajasic and Tamasic kind of classification of the food. But in Taittiriya Upanishad, the cycle that I was mentioning before, and in Upadesha Sahasri of Shankaracharya in a prose portion, a little more deeper prakarna grantha, you may call it. There, the cycle is explained as the food is consumed by, say, mother and father. That nutrition is absorbed in the body. Having absorbed in the body, its essence is the generative capacities. That when they merge, now a birth takes place. Anna rasena eva bhutva. The food is the reason for the birth of the body. Anna rasena eva vrittim. The body continues to grow because of the food consumed. Then what? Once the decay starts and vinashyati has taken place, yat viliyate, anna rupa, it goes back, viliyate, it resolves back, it goes back into its anna rupa form. Where? In Prithvi. Where is food arising from? Prithvi. Prithvi is the adhar of food, goes through its vikar. That vikar of food has its cycle, and here you consume the food, its essence is nourishing the generative cells, nourishing the generative cells. When they merge, body is born, sustained by food through the 9 months, afterwards, throughout the cycle is sustained by food. So, Prithvi is the Adhar, transformed into Annam, consumed, transformed further into the body and its procreative capacities, and continues and then merges back into Prithvi. The whole thing is a vikar of Annam. And so the Sthula Sharir is called Annamayaha. And how does it become a Koshaha? When you conclude that I am the body. On conclusion that I am the body, it is now an error in your self-knowledge. It's a judgment, misplaced judgment, because the body will fall off, the flower will fall off from the crystal, but crystal is eternal. Crystal is lasting, the flowers are not lasting. Similarly, Atma I am is a lasting thing, is a lasting experience. But body I am is not a lasting experience. The body is bound to go. So the discernment is so possible when one goes through this to discover the kosha. Where is the mistake? And it is all in the form of thoughts later on. I am the body is recognized as what? As an experience noted as a thought. Who are you? I am so and so. In my I am so and so perception, my body comes first to my mind. If I say close your eyes, and let's do a little meditation, supposing I say close your eyes and visualize your body. What are you visualizing? Immediately this body is visualized. You don't visualize somebody else's body. It's fascinating. When I say visualize your toes, rub your toes, whose toes are you rubbing? Whose toes are you visualizing? It's not your child's or your partner's or your mother's or somebody else's toes. The form of I, that I seems to have a form. That I which has a form, seen as a form, that is kosha. Sustained by annam, which means breaks off on discernment. The minute I discern correctly, I do vichar and I place the qualities of the body on the body. They can remain on the body. I will use the body. It is meant for my use. And then there was a question asked, what is the harm in this identification with the body? Megha, your question. What is the harm in identification with the body? There is no harm at all. In fact, it's inevitable. We have no choice but identifying with the body. But why does the Shastra point to us to not have too much of a value? Because the minute, it's like a magnetic pull. When you're in association with something that is changing, if the crystal is in association with the changing flower, as if the flower holds a magnetic pull, as if, please, these are not really so, it's just imagery to help us understand. There is so much of a pull that pull is going to constantly keep reinforcing the same thought and the same idea, which is false, which is not the truth. So while it is consciously, nobody can avoid, even when you have the knowledge, remember the example of sunrise and sunset. Sunrise, even when I see sunrise, I say sunrise, I go to the sunrise point, I enjoy the sunrise, and if I paint, I'd love to carry my painting equipment and I'd love to capture it on my canvas. I'd love to capture a sunrise on my canvas, physical and mental, both. But I am not deluded. I don't carry a wrong knowledge that sun rises. Because I believed, as every human, till it was discovered that it is not the sun rises. Till then I believed that sun rises. And nobody could have shaken that knowledge off. But the minute the right knowledge has come, that sun does not rise, sun does not set, it is just the movement of earth, which is bringing me the experience of sunrise and sunset. Now I can enjoy the sunrise and enjoy the sunset with the knowledge that sun is not moving. Earth is moving. Is there a contradiction in the two then? Do you see a contradiction at all? No. Because while I can enjoy sunrise and sunset, I can have right knowledge that sun is not rising and sun is not setting. In the same way, while I'm identified with the body, I am supposed to use the body. The body is a gift. It is a rare rest of, that is why we value every life, not just human life. When you get into a Vedic vision and its training that it does on our minds, every life, wherever there is breath, we hold it precious. Whether it's an ant, whether it is even a microbe. झगड़ा हो किसके साथ रहा है हमारा? Our enemy is invisible. At this point, the enemy sees us, we don't see it with our eyes. Virus is seeing us, I don't see the virus. वो देख के उसको पता है, वो देख रहा है एंट्री पॉइंट कौन सी है, एस्टैब्लिशमेंट पॉइंट कौन सा है, ग्रोइंग पॉइंट कौन सा है. It knows before its cycle ends. It also has a cycle because it's going through changes. Entire life phenomenon is precious. But human birth is most precious by first class. And as I said, till the last class, same thing will continue. Human birth is extremely precious. Every birth is precious because identification with the body alone is what is helping us to appreciate. Ever, if possible, only in a human birth will it ever happen that I will appreciate what is belonging to the added qualities and what is my nature. What have I collected and what am I really? That layer of differentiation. So, in other words, I'm completing the answer now. Because this association with the body is so strong, it's so magnetic, it's so natural to us, that it keeps taking our attention and solidifying it. And the more it solidifies it, it further has more insecurities and attachments developing around it because body will change. So you will have more and more of mental vikaras arising because of that. Moreover, because of all this, there is this tendency to move towards the growth of what we all have, these like insecure, etc. They start multiplying, they start growing, what we call as all the Kaurava qualities, the Asuri qualities. So what is actually to be discarded or to be held with gratitude and say as a gift and use it for the purpose that it's meant for before the exit happens. Instead of that, I will attach with it and I will start developing Asuri Vritti very soon around it. So too much of an attention was always discouraged in Vedic view, not in modern times. Too much attention to prevent that happening. They started divinizing the body because that is the truth. You start visualizing the body as a temple. Instead of saying, I am the body, you say this body is a temple. And who resides in this temple? Is this conscious being. And then sometimes Upanishads give us imagery, in the heart space of yours, visualize that small deity in your heart space. Now, what has happened? The whole idea of me being the body has been overwritten and given a more divine, quote unquote, a different shade, which will prevent all these asuri tendencies to multiply. Because unobserved, unchecked, the natural gravitation will be towards the senses. Kathopanishad has told us very clearly, by default, by some programming, our senses are directed outward. So we only see outward, we don't see inward. It's all sense. Now you know what are the organs of perception. Gyanendriya. These Gyanendriyas are all centered out. So because of this, the identification with the body goes on strengthening itself. Am I making sense? Because it goes on strengthening itself, if someone does not put a check at it at a right value, it's not to be discarded as useless. No, it's a gift. It's a rare thing. It's preserved. It's valued. That's why one of the duties that every living being has is to keep your body fit. But keeping the body fit does not mean I should delude myself to say, I am the body. It is a responsibility. If I have a family, I take care of my family. It's a responsibility. If I have a body, I have a responsibility. I take care of the responsibility. But I am the body is the only thing that Shastra tells us. इससे थोड़ा ध्यान रखना. Because अगर ये थोड़ा ज़्यादा हो गया ना, it's like that marker. If you've got the antigen test done, then self-testing में जो आता है, and then that thing goes, and it goes, if it goes beyond that particular line, then now beyond that mark means you have some sort of an infection. But if it stays at that first point, you don't have an infection. It's a marker. It's a marker for what? That means you can't see the virus, you can't see anything, but through that marker, you know the load possible. What is the load of the virus in the system? That dehoham is a marker. If it gets too strong, then the asuri vrittis you won't be able to manage after some time. So ahankar and irsha and dvesh and bhaya means fear of death, fear of old age, fear of losing a tooth, fear of wrinkles, fear of grey hair, fear of... We know how it multiplies. So while we look at the body with a divine vision, accepting this is a very rare thing. Therefore, I value it correctly. I use it for what it's worth and I make it presentable. I look after it as best. And there is some little shades is beautiful. It's nice to have abharanam over it. It's nice to have, what is it called? Divinize it, whichever way one wants. The idea is only don't cling to it as real. So, Anna, because that will now strengthen the Annamaya Kosha. In this context, you will understand clearly. The more I identify with the body, the more I'm strengthening the Annamaya Kosha. And the fact won't change. The fact is, it's born through food, it's sustained through food, and it becomes food again. Goes back to earth because that means it becomes food. That is Sthula Shariram. Okay, I'll just touch upon the next kosha, and there is a quick question along with it. Okay, let me take the question. We don't have time. This we'll do tomorrow. The question has been asked is, we say jaisa an vaisa man. And also that because as we have, food is classified. Remember in Shraddha, I gave you the classification of Sattvic Shraddha, Rajasic Shraddha, Tamasic Shraddha from the 17th chapter itself of the Gita. Same way, food over there is also described as Sattvic food, Rajasic food, and Tamasic food. the idea of giving this division is that there are twofold things. Food in this context is what is making your body, and its essence is nourishing the body and generating the birth. This is the food portion. The nutrients are extracted, circulated, digested, circulated, absorbed, and for what? Ultimately, for the functioning of the organs. That functioning of the organ is the pranas. Tomorrow in details we'll do it again. Pranas are the pancha pranas. Remember? All the 5 physiological functions. The food we take in is absorbed in the body, and its nutrition that is absorbed is translated into energy for the body in modern language, which is doing all the physiological functions of the body. In an Shastra Drishti, Pranamaya Kosha is the Pancha Pranas, Pancha Vayavaha, 5 pranas, and Vag Adi Indriya. What is a Vag Adi Indriya? Anybody? Vag is Vak, speech. So what is speech, etc. Indriya called?
The organs of action. Organs of action.
Perfect. Organs of action. Karmendriya. Right? The energy that is taken from the body, from the food, is circulated, etc., to different parts for the functioning. That pranas is regulating all that. And pranas is functioning, the helping, means the organs of action get functional because of the energy there, which the food has now digested and extracted out for us. Now, jaisa an vaisa man. Pranas, remember the class? Sthula Sharir is the Annamaya Kosh. Then Pranamaya Kosh, Manomaya Kosh, and Vijnanamaya Kosh are all Sukshma Sharir. Jaisa an vaisa man is actually implying that the kind of food we take is obviously, supposing it's tamasic. What is a tamasic food? Tamasic food is a food which is absolutely burnt, charred food, barbecues. All your barbecue food is a tamasic food. And then when it's compounded with something to drink, and you know which one I mean, which drink along with it, now you are adding layers of tamasic food on it. So oily food, burnt, oily, stale food, over fermented food, very highly fermented. So, it's like, that's why I'm prohibited, because these are public classes. But all those things that intoxicate you are overly fermented. Aged wines, that supposedly, the more the age is, that means they're fermented. It's grape. Grape is fermented. That all this becomes tamasic food. Burnt, dry. Sorry, not oily, dry. It's dry. It's insipid. It's actually flavorless to quite an extent. And so that's tamasic food. Rajasic food is something which is oily, and very spicy, very, very spicy. So, khate, some of us enjoy it. So, jab tak wo nikalte nahi hai yahan se, we don't feel it should be that spicy. And it should be hot as in very, very hot. It should be hot, and it should be very overcooked. Means it should be well cooked, bhuno, which almost goes down to tamasic, that kind. So it's like oily, fry, too much of it. Little bit is all, in all right proportions, all three foods are perfect. But when there is predominance leaning towards one, so that becomes Rajasic food. And Sattvic food is the food which is very strange definition also, I think. It is a food which is pleasant to look at. जिसको देखते ही there is an aroma and the saliva starts to get excreted, the मुंह में पानी आना kind of a thing. देखते ही, that's why it's not just the presentation. The whole appearance of the food is such that the indriya is activated. No, not really. Indriya gets activated. The rasa starts to secrete before the food is already taken in. It should be fresh. It should be cooked correctly. It should be balanced and nourishing, of course. Broadly, I think this is the qualities. Now, Sattvic food, if you take that food, firstly, who will go towards that food? There are bhindi. I'm taking an example of bhindi. I know 3 people who like bhindi 3 different ways. I know someone who likes the bhindi absolutely slow fire, cooked, 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 till about 1 kg becomes 250 grams or less than that on a slow fire equally, and it becomes kind of, and then they enjoy it. They can't have bhindi any other way. I know someone else who has bhindi cooked in between, not too much like this, and I know someone who has bhindi just about sauteed, just about cooked, and enjoys that bhindi. Now, who's going to go, the one who enjoys the third kind, which is the saute kind of a bhindi, who's going to go for the first kind, second kind, third kind? Where is your leaning? Who likes that, likes this, likes this? We all have our tastes that we lean towards. That means we are already driven in our gunas. Later on, next portion of the Tattva Bodha is going to give us more about Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. You will get more clarity there. But because the question is here in such a manner and it associates with the koshas, I'm taking it up now. Now you will lean only towards that food, the kind of proportion that you hold in yourself. It's a cyclical dependence. जैसा अन्न खाया है वैसा मन है और जैसा मन है वैसा अन्न खाओगे. You will gravitate towards it. So the idea was अन्न is gross, man is subtle. So the control, जैसा अन्न वैसा मन कहते ही, there is certain level of Dhamma that starts to function. I need to control. If I want my vrittis to change, vrittis thoughts, if I want my likings to change, or if I want to prefer something else, because the energy coming from all the 3 foods will be of a different nature. And it's not necessary that one is better than the other. If you are a soldier by nature, you need a different kind of an energy. But if you are a student by nature, like in those days, the classification was very clear, Brahmin, Kshatriya, etc. So if you are doing a lot of menial work, you need a different kind of energy. If you are doing a lot of mental work, you need a different kind of energy. So the cycle of food and mind, it's not that the food controls the mind, it is just that there is this interdependence between the two. You gravitate towards that, and if you want to break it, that's where Dhamma comes. So, अन्न को control करके कितना कर लोगे? Obviously, you can't change the man just by changing the अन्न. But you can initiate some change if you want to. Otherwise, you recognize and keep to the right kind of a food. A little more on it, but once we do pranamayaha koshaha, because this is slightly away from the topic, I'm just taking it up for its own sake. Restrict yourself to Koshaha first. Okay? So I've taken 2 questions because they kind of border on the topic. Tomorrow we will continue with the Prana Maya Kosha. Is that okay? Fine. So let's conclude the class. Didi?
ॐ सर्वेषां स्वास्तिर्भवतु सर्वेषां शान्तिर्भवतु सर्वेषां पूर्णं भवतु सर्वेषां मङ्गलं भवतु सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत्.
Should I do this?
Yeah, I can do it. ॐ स्वस्ति प्रजाभिः परिपालयन्तां न्यायेन मार्गेण महीमहीषाः गोब्राह्मणेभ्यः शुभमस्तु नित्यं लोकाः समस्ताः सुखिनो भवन्तु काले वर्षतु पर्जन्यः पृथ्वी सस्यशालिनी देशोऽयं क्षोभरहितः ब्राह्मणाः सन्तु निर्भयाः ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः.
Excellent. Just Deshoyam. That anuswara on top.
Deshoyam.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deepti ji. Hari Om.
Thank you so much.